This is Askcarterlaw, and welcome to the legal breakdown of the Cardi B versus TashaK defamation suit. Let's get started. First off, let's jump into what Cardi B's complaint alleges against TashaK. It alleges four things. First, slander, then slander per se, libel per se, and then invasion of privacy regarding false light and defamation towards her character. So we have four issues here that I'm going to quickly analyze, which you would have to prove since this is what is alleged. So let's start off with slander and slander per se. Defamation in itself is defined as false statements made either spoken or written. So if it's spoken, it's slander. So just think spoken, slander. They both begin with an S. And then libel is false statements that are written, that defame someone's character. And so typically you have to prove that they were intentionally made, that they were published, to a third party or into the public. You also typically have to prove damages with both slander and libel. However, in this case, this is a special case because there are four categories where you don't have to prove any damages, and if you can prove that you fit one of those categories, then you have what they call slander per se or libel per se, which means essentially the statements by themselves are so terrible, so awful, so defamatory that you don't have to prove damages. So in this case, Cardi is claiming both regular slander and slander per se, and then also libel per se. So we already know that they were intentionally done. They were published to the public through social media and YouTube. So all those elements are met. So really the issue is, number one, are they true? Because, the biggest defense to a defamation suit is truth. So Tasha can prove that any of these things are true. That throws out these allegations. But also as it relates to the slander per se and the libel per se, do the categories of things that she spoke about fall into those four categories that I mentioned? So we first have, if you speak about someone committing a crime, or the second category is anything that speaks to someone's sexual relations, like if they're promiscuous or things of that nature. Then there's a category of if you accuse someone of having some sort of viral disease or STD. And then last but not least, if you are alleging or you're publishing statements, again, either written or oral, that speak to the person's profession. So if you said, for example, a lawyer stole money from a client and they really didn't, that's defamation per se, because stealing from a client, that's an ethical violation. They could lose their bar license. So if you're making statements that could hurt that person's professional reputation. So with that being said, what are the statements here that Cardi is claiming Tasha made through these various social media posts and video posts on YouTube? She accused her of, number one, herpes, so that falls in the STD category, and then also prostitution, which is a crime. There was also, I believe, an allegation of her, and this is actually being addressed in another case, actually, ironically, against Cardi, that maybe she had drugged men in this prostitution ring, didn't have sex with them, drugged them, and didn't have sex with them and stole their money. So all of this is criminal, what were said in these statements. Herpes obviously falls in the STD category. She then also accused her of doing cocaine. That's not necessarily defamation per se, because I don't think that would necessarily hurt her career. And doing drugs is not a crime, but obviously selling drugs is. I guess if you were in possession of drugs at the time of an arrest, that would be a crime. But I don't think her doing cocaine necessarily would fit under the slander or the libel per se. But I do believe that alone the herpes and the prostitution claims would. So with that being said, if she can just prove those two things, she out the door, doesn't have to prove any sort of damages, and has TashaK on slander per se and libel per se. Now, the libel per se comes into the actual written captions. So remember, libel is written. So yeah, the videos, you can hear the videos, but the words and the actual captions of these videos, whether they be on Instagram, Twitter, or YouTube, that is where the libel is coming in. That's the written part. The speaking part are the actual videos. What else? Just want to make sure I'm not missing anything else. And then in terms of damages, if she were to actually try to prove damages, let's say she couldn't prove libel per se or slander per se, then she would move on to trying to prove damages, and she believes that she can prove intentional emotional distress and also damage to her name, character, and reputation. So she's saying those are her damages, even if she couldn't prove slander per se or libel per se. Last but not least, you have evasion of privacy. So that was the fourth allegation. Evasion of privacy covers a lot of things, but in this case, the subcategory is false light. And that's when you, again, put someone's character under a false light. You say false things about them. That's a subcategory of invasion of privacy. And so that's the fourth allegation in the complaint. All right, now let's move on to the history of the case before we jump into the juiciness of what the trial has revealed and also some of the trial testimony. So the history of the case reveals that there were originally actually two defendants. Okay, two defendants. Tasha K's real name is Tasha Kebe or Kebe, Kebe, and the other defendant at the time was Star Marie Ebony Jones. Most of you guys, I guess, know her by Star Jones or Star Marie Jones. So these were the original two defendants. About a year after this complaint was filed, Cardi B amended the complaint and only left TashaK as the defendant. Again, not sure why, but as of now, this particular complaint is just against Tasha and not Tasha and Star. Tasha and Star, however, did jointly make videos saying some of these same statements about prostitution, herpes, cocaine, even alleged that she was cheating on her husband. And also because she did drugs, maybe even her child would have some defects, and maybe the child right now, culture actually has maybe some mental incapabilities because of her drug use during her pregnancy. So those were some additional things that I didn't mention that were alleged in the complaint. But these videos covered all these various topics between the two ladies. The new complaint reveals the following relief that Cardi is requesting. One, at least $75,000 to include punitive damages. So no less than $75,000 to take down the videos. Any video money made from the videos to give that to Cardi. Also, no more future statements from her or any of her representatives or affiliates, about drugs, prostitution, herpes, any of that they can no longer make any future statements. And then last but not least, any, attorney fees, interest, and costs was Cardi B's fees incurred because of the trial. So that's what her complaint is asking, which, if you think about it, is not a lot. TashaK could have really settled this by even just taking the videos down. She probably wouldn't even ask for the money. I think if she had just taken the videos down and issued some sort of apology, they wouldn't be here at trial. But they're both standing their ground, so we shall see. TashaK also countersued at one point during this complaint for harassment. She said that Cardi B, was threatening her to the point where she was stressed out during her own pregnancy, and she had to move several times because she feared for her life and safety, and her safety of her child. That suit was for $3 million, and $3 million, and the judge actually threw it out. So that's no longer a pending thing in this particular case. Last but not least, TashaK actually recorded herself being served with the motion the complaint, as if she wasn't taking it seriously. And supposedly she moved not because of her safety, but because she was dodging service. Again, we're not sure if that's true. But either way, TashaK's countersuit was thrown out. They felt like whatever she provided in terms of threats by Cardi, it wasn't enough to show that she was actually any real immediate threat. And I don't think it had been repetitive to substantiate her harassment. So with that being said, let's move on to what the trial has revealed so far. So the first thing the trial has revealed is proof of settlements. So Cardi actually tried to just send her several cease and desist, 3 cease and desists actually total, that Tasha ignored. And then she also sent her direct DMs, pleading to her as mothers to just take it down or issue an apology. And obviously TashaK did not agree to that. And then there's also proof of viciousness. Supposedly, Instagram took down several posts like 3 times. Twitter took down a post. So, it wasn't like she said this one time or posted this one time. She kind of went out of her way to make sure this was posted several places. So that speaks to viciousness and malice, which I didn't say this at the top of the video, but typically when you're a celebrity, it's really hard to prove defamation because who you are, your life is always trending and it's public and it's newsworthy and people are allowed to talk about it. But when you're talking about it, again, with an extra level of malice and viciousness, that's when a celebrity can sue for defamation. So anyway, that was the proof of viciousness. Then you also have proof of the negative herpes test. Of course, Cardi B could put her name on the test. She just took several herpes tests under a different name so that she could confirm that she didn't have herpes to provide that. Because again, if she had herpes, then TashaK wasn't lying. And there she goes with one of her defamation per se allegations. Then the judge also, you should know so far, is not pleased with TashaK's attorneys. He has held them to be unprofessional, held them in contempt several times. We have also learned through credible sources that they are criminal lawyers. They're not civil litigation lawyers. So I'm not sure why TashaK would hire lawyers that don't specialize in this, but that's the case. Last but not least, TashaK has responded back within the last couple of days that, in response to this complaint, her evidence is just as strong as Cardi B's, that, she has over 125 exhibits showing that Cardi has already admitted to being a prostitute, has already admitted to doing drugs, and that she had a valuable, a verified source about why she may have had herpes. And that even if she didn't, there was a herpes on her lip, and that if anything, there was a picture of that circulating. That's what she was referring to. Of course, Cardi is saying she wasn't referring to that she was really referring to general herpes, not the picture about her mouth, and that actually that's a birthmark. She showed a picture of her when she was younger. It's a birthmark. It wasn't actually even herpes of the mouth. So there's a lot of back and forth. It's really going to be who can present the strongest evidence and who can give the most credible testimony. So with that being said, let's close out with the actual trial testimony in the case. Cardi B right now has admitted to wanting to commit suicide over the allegations on the stand, which again is going to speak to her intentional emotional distress in terms of damages if she were to have to prove damages in this case. And then, interesting enough, TashaK's husband has taken the stand and has already admitted that sometimes her statements on her channel were false. And, although he wasn't always a part of the content, he does own 50% of her business. So far, those are the things that have come out. I'm sure, because this trial will be almost 2 weeks, more things will come. We'll probably just update this same video caption with whatever those updates are. Also, check the caption with the link to the actual complaints. We'll provide that. So anyway, that is the legal breakdown on Cardi B versus TashaK. Also, just let us know your thoughts. I think this is an interesting case, just a defamation, but it's also just an interesting case in terms of what will happen because TashaK really represents so many bloggers out there that tell stories and run with stories to make a living, to feed themselves and their families. So I definitely think we're all in one accord and agreement that if Tasha, is found liable with any of these things that Cardi is alleging, that it's definitely going to put bloggers and celebrity news people that report on this type of news on edge. They're going to be way, way, way more careful of how they speak, right, to this moving forward, depending on how this trial turns out. So anyway, thank you for listening. Until next time, you can find trending legal hot topics like this on Askcarterlaw.com or at Askcarterlaw. Take care.